everyone. Thank you for bearing with me as I troubleshoot. Apparently, there we go. That time it worked. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I am happy to be here presenting today on websites as a team sport, finding alignment and success. My name is Drew Gorton, and I've been doing open source web development for probably a little bit over 20 years now. The last 15 of those, I've been involved with Drupal, and the last 6 of those, I've been working with Pantheon. My contact info is on here. I'm happy. This is a lightning talk, so it's only about 20 minutes. And given the technical difficulties, we've already eaten 2 of those. We may run tight on questions in case anyone has those. I will try to watch the chat that we have. But if you would like to follow up with me on any of these things, feel free to reach out in the Drupal Slack or on Twitter or on LinkedIn or email or whatever works for you. So websites are really complex co-creation. They are created by a lot of people with a lot of different roles, marketers and content creators and designers and developers and visitors, all of whom have different specializations, right? So unless you have the content being created, you don't have a chance of being successful. Unless you have people actually building the site, you don't have a chance of being successful. Unless you don't have people actually interacting with the site, your visitors, your customers, you don't have a chance of being successful. Like all of these different people are coming together, and they have very different interests, and they have very different workflows, and they have very different goals. Your developers want to, keep the site up and secure and add functionality. Your front end engineers, your front end designers, and your branding people and user experience people have a different set of things that they're paying attention to. Your content creators have a very different set of workflows, and ultimately, you're doing it all in service of these visitors. Information is moving back and forth from a lot of different places, a lot of different systems. It becomes really easy for members of the team to lose track of who's doing what and why and when. To some extent, that's okay. I mean, to some extent, it's okay for us not to know. Like, I'm a front end developer, not needing to understand how content gets edited or why different things are prioritized. To some extent, is okay. But when teams really, totally, completely lose sight of the purpose of the website and such, you lose a chance to have an impact. You lose a chance for people to say, like, wait, why are we doing this? Is this really the most important thing that we could be doing? And you lose a chance for those of us who are, in the agency world, for example, to provide more value to your clients. So about a year ago, I had the opportunity to lead a project for Pantheon. We run hundreds of thousands of sites, and we had this hypothesis, this idea, like, what if we could build a dashboard that would tell us and our clients if they were headed in the right direction? We were sort of inspired by Google page speed, if you will. Like, so right now you score a 72, if you do these things, you can get 85 or 90, and sort of get better results out of their website, with the idea that websites have a job to do, right? People are building a community, maybe they're selling things, maybe they're collecting donations, signing up for the newsletter, whatever those things are. We have a lot of information that we could anonymize and use to do an analysis like this, right? So we know what kind of software, like what kind of modules you're using, what your stack looks like, how big your database is. We have some sense of the traffic that's happening to your site. We know when you're pushing code, if you're using things like continuous integration processes, et cetera. So there's a lot of information that we could potentially use to try and discern, like, are you being effective? And so we started down that path, and really kind of, tried to dial in, like, give some numeric scores and such. And at the end of the day, the answer was no, we couldn't, right? So we failed, right? It was not possible to quantify based on the brains that we had and the data that we had. We just couldn't get to the point where we would say, like, you score 72, here's what you might do to get you an 85 or, get better. And so that really made us kind of go back and say, all right, well, we did learn a lot through this process. What we had done is we started talking to teams who we thought, and were demonstrating a lot of success with their websites. They were, able to iterate rapidly, seeing a lot of engagement from their customers, and really providing a lot of value at the end of the day to the organizations that they were in service of. And so we thought, well, all right, we did learn a lot. Is there any other way we could apply the knowledge, these learnings? And so what we did is we went back to all of those different people who were doing it successful. We re-looked at the information. We re-looked at our interviews with those folks. And we realized that they were talking about things in a very particular way. And they often shared some really, really great insights with us about being on a successful team. So we looked at that and we said, well, is there a way that we could use this information in a different way? And so what we came up with was a series of 9 questions, which I'll be sharing with you shortly. And then we took those questions to other teams and just sort of tested them out. Like, okay, are we able to learn anything? Are we able to, equip these people with questions that they can use to get aligned and, find more success? And the answer was yes, very much so. Very much this quote may be misattributed to Confucius, but it's commonly misattributed. So we really attempted to say, like, all right, so this idea of creating a dashboard didn't work, but maybe we can still give people something that they can use to find alignment and success. And so what I'm about to share with you, I'll also just say is, like, this isn't specific to Drupal. It's not specific to Pantheon at all. So it is, these again, I should be useful across different technologies, different web teams, etc. The last thing I'll say before sharing the questions is just to share the mental model that we're using to organize these questions. And so this is the WebOps model that we use and think that is a useful way for all of us to think about how we provide value, how we provide success and to our clients and with our websites. And there's these different layers, if you will. So at the credibility layer, there's stuff that, is the site running? Is it secure? Is it fast? The kind of things that you traditionally associate with, like, good quality hosting, for example. But it's also things like, is the website, is it easy to use? Like, is it on brand? Does it feel like, do I trust it? Does it have, am I able as a user to navigate it? Is it accessible? Those kinds of things. And then up at the top, in the impact zone, is all about the goals and getting better, basically. So at the base layer, if you will, is that, like, does it pass the sniff test? Does this feel like a real website I would use and trust? And is it up and going to be responsive and those things? At the high level is, okay, so is it accomplishing its goals? And that's about goals, measurement, iteration, reporting, those kinds of things. And then connecting those two is, okay, so website successful, it's working well. It's about the team, right? And the productivity of that team. Are they collaborating well? Are they communicating? Does it take a long time to do work? Does it take a long time to add new functionalities? Does it take a long time to add content? And are things automated where they can be? And this is about team velocity and such. So this is the way the questions are organized. It's a useful mental model, we think. You're welcome to steal it and use it yourselves as you think about how you do your work and talk about it with clients and other stakeholders. So the first 3 questions that we found that successful teams were able to answer effectively were these 3 around the impact. What's the purpose of your website? So teams that were able to answer this were actually, it was surprising the number of times that we would ask this question. We would see the team sort of engage with this question, and a lot of people would look around like, I don't really know, right? And that was very telling for how well the website was accomplishing goals. Or someone might answer and someone else might disagree. And so getting clarity around the purpose of the website and not having that be like a 4-page answer with 200 different individual answers. Like, can you concisely state, what are we doing with this website? It might be 2 or 3 things. That's okay. But just laying that out, it was surprising how illuminating that was for teams. Surprising to me, at least. And then closely related to that is, how are you measuring that, right? So, the purpose of the website, e-commerce would be a simple example, for example, to say, like, all right, so we're measuring it in total sales, but maybe it's donor relations, perhaps. Like, there's a lot of more ambiguous things, but Do you have a clear way to measure that today? And then how are you improving those results over time? So if you got, 10 good results last week, what are you doing to try and get 11 this week? And just having conversations about those things, again, had a really positive impact on the teams we spoke with about this. The next three questions that we took from these, again, highly performant, successful teams, and then shared around with others, were around this productivity layer. So how long does it take you to deliver meaningful updates? And then corollary of why, when the answers seem to be like eye roll and it's a lot of time and other things. If it takes you forever to roll out new features or a new look or a new landing page, whatever it may be, there's something broken, and that means there's an opportunity to fix that thing. Very much related, publishing content. It was surprising the number of times that we spoke to people who otherwise looked like they had their stuff together, and you would ask them how long it takes to publish content, and it turned into a really, that's very difficult because we go through this step and this step and this step, and people are confused about the editing interface and other things like that. And then more broadly speaking, asking people, what are some of the tasks that take the most time and effort? And then digging into why those things are. And again, oftentimes this really provided a lot of clarity about like, whoa, we should make it much easier for this group of people to do these things. And it had a powerful aligning effect for teams. The last three questions that we again took from this really successful group were about this sort of credibility layer, which is like, is the website up and running? Is it trustworthy, et cetera? And so it was to dig into things like site disruptions. What's caused them? Has it been people, cowboy coding or doing, sort of bad DevOps practices, or has it been, lack of a testing environment, or has it been whatever sequence of things might have caused, or outage at the hosting provider, for example. A lot of things could happen. Understanding what kinds of things happen with some frequency is, again, a way to just eliminate those kinds of problems. Talking to people about how do you ensure that your site is easy to use, right? So do you have automated accessibility testing? Do you have other kinds of things? Do you have a user experience sort of plan and consistent branding and other things like that? Maybe your theme is part of this in the way that you hand out sub themes to different organizations and such. And then the ongoing quality of the site is another thing that we saw these successful teams being able to answer and have an answer for us, like how they ensure the ongoing quality. Because it's one thing, for example, to build a website that's accessible. It's a different thing, for example, to keep it accessible over time. That involves training content editors and other things like that. And that's just one little aspect of making sure the site is easy to use, obviously. So those 9 questions, and again, I'll share the slides with folks. I'll do that in the hop-in interface here, and I'll share them on Twitter as well. That's questions, and questions, are can be helpful, but they don't give you the answers, right? Here are some suggested uses I would share though for these questions. If you are work for an agency, for example, and you can use these in a sales process, I think you might find yourself being able to differentiate yourself from your competition and also really understand the pain points of your customers much better. Oftentimes when you're responding to an RFP, there's like a list of, a lot of very detailed questions, and it can be, kind of difficult to understand why. What are we doing? Who cares? What's broken today? And these questions, again, can really help you get to those kinds of answers. Similarly, before you start a project, hey, we've got this new major initiative starting, we're going to be launching this new set of features, whatever the thing is, to just get clarity on these questions and then use them to hone the scope of the project and maybe pick up some low-hanging fruit that you could easily use to make the site more effective overall. Some adjacent tasks that you might not have thought about. Very much related, many of us have a cycle of reporting or retrospectives or doing a quarterly review or other things like that, to just go back and say like, all right, so This is the purpose of our website. This is some of the, answer these questions as part of that might help give clarity as you hold your results in and think on them and think on ways to get better. Again, closer related to that, like many of us do a process or strategy planning, on a quarterly or perhaps yearly basis, and saying, all right, well, this is what we want to do over the next year, being crisp about the why and the impact of the site and what's working today and what isn't. These 9 questions can really, I think, be effective. And certainly another place is just in account management. So if you're working with customers on a regular basis and trying to understand, their pain points better, we've certainly seen success doing that ourselves with these questions. And with that, I'll just close with a quote that someone who started using these questions shared with me, and I won't read this. You can read well. So this came from an account manager. Again, I'll let you read. You'll read faster than me. That's how this works. Saying like, I wasn't sure if this was going to be helpful. And this was actually this is a very senior account manager on our team, who had been working very successfully with a number of teams. Really found that asking these questions explicitly and then listening to the answers was a powerful tool for her to help those people find more success. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm happy to answer any questions people may have. I will again post these slides for folks, and I wish you all success and alignment in your future projects. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to. I'll watch both the Q&A and the chat. I think we have. I believe we have 2 minutes. And Yogesh, you can perhaps confirm that if that is the case. No problem, Duncan. I hope you've had a good DrupalCon. Hans, also, I should say hello back. Good to have you. Thank you for joining, and thank you for saying hi in the chat. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, I am again happy to connect offline over the social networks, etc. Thank you again for your time. I hope you've had a good DrupalCon, and I wish you happy further sessions and the rest of the conference. Thanks all.